Well, today we have May Bugenhagen, who is a dear friend and matchmaker colleague of mine on Love on the Go. And she actually has a very similar business model to me. And that's why I thought it would be really intriguing to have the two of us just chatting. And she owns two Asian matchmakers, and she's been working in the industry since 2009. Welcome, May.
Thank you. Glad to be here, Laurie.
Yeah. Well, what's different about your business model is you work with successful and accomplished men in the US finding an Asian partner in the US and Asia. So we've collaborated a little bit through the years. But that's different. That's a very unique niche. And so I thought that could be a cool way to start is, how did you get involved with your business and what intrigued you about working specifically with the Asian population?
Well, just because I'm Asian and my business partner at the time when we started this, she's also Asian. So for whatever reason, just men started coming to us and say, hey, I want to date an Asian woman. And we're like, okay. And then more people came, more and more men wanted to date Asian women. So we thought, well, this is a fun niche. So that's how it started. And it's been great. The men are the paying clients. Women join my database for free. So the women are in my Rolodex and they get dates, and, I still vet them and interview them and make sure they qualify and all that. But yeah, it's definitely unique. So
men who are Asian, as well as men of all ethnicities, hire you to date specifically Asian women.
Correct. But a lot of the Asian men or Caucasian men who come to me, they also date Caucasian women sometimes, but their preference is Asian women. So I still enlist the help of, 300 and something other matchmakers all across the US, kind of like what you do.
Yes.
And ask them for help for Asian women and Caucasian women or Latina. So yeah, those are my three popular preferences of the men.
So what is it about Asian women that men are so intrigued by, do you think?
Well, they sometimes think they're going to get submissive women, which is not true because I am anything but submissive.
Right.
And a lot of times the men come to us because they like how the women are caring, kind, family oriented, a little bit more polite, probably, like they think, than the average Caucasian American women, or the men have been to Asia before for work or for the military, and they just love the culture, the food, the traditions. But a lot of it is very similar to the Jewish culture, value education, success, family oriented. Yeah, a lot of my Caucasian women love Jewish men. Like that's a very sought after preference of theirs. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so you're based in Denver, correct?
No, I'm based near Colorado Springs in LA. I'm physically in Colorado, but my business is out of LA and all across the US, the men.
Yeah, so nowadays we can do everything obviously virtually, so it's not an issue. And then you talk to matchmakers and collaborate with matchmakers from all over, like you said, to make those introductions happen. Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. And how many people do you work with at a time generally?
Very small, actually, 8 to 12 men at a time. So they get very personalized service, kind of like you, where you don't take a whole bunch of people and you don't know the names of your clients.
That's right.
I have them on my cell phone. They contact me directly.
Yep.
But women, I have a huge database of women. So yeah, the men only 8 to 12 guys at a time. That's all I want to take on at a time and handle and do a good job with. So
yeah, that's exactly my model. Yeah, you and I are very similar. And so what do you think is kind of like your greatest strength as a matchmaker?
My greatest strength is to talk to the men and kind of guide them, because they have all these preconceived notions of who they want, but then I start asking them questions and they're like, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, I never thought about that. for example, a guy might say, well, I want a woman who looks young and I want her to be like in her 30s, but I don't want kids. I'm like, well, have you thought about the women who are in their 30s still want to have kids?
Mhm.
So that might be a tough one for you. Have you thought about that? No, I haven't
Mhm.
thought about that. Or they say like, I want to date a woman in their 30s, but their kids can be grown up. I'm like, they are not grown up if they're only in their 30s. Like, have you done
Right.
the math? So
Right.
a lot of times it's like these aha moments for them that they're like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, good. No wonder I'm hiring you. So you could do the thinking for me. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's just things like that.
Right. And then what about the disconnect where you said earlier that some men think that Asian women are submissive? Do you need to have that conversation
Oh,
up
yes.
front? Like, listen, like,
Right.
why are you wanting to hire me, right, for this particular population? Like, what do you think you're going to be getting, right?
Well, then I have to ask them more questions like, okay, are you looking for someone who maybe likes to cook, likes to clean, doesn't mind being a housewife? Like those are
Right.
her goals, right? And that's
Right.
very fine if that's the case. But I guess
Mhm.
it doesn't really mean submissive. He just means traditional and that he can
Okay.
bring the money in and, be the breadwinner. So a
Mhm.
lot of times it's just helping them dissect who they're looking for in different terms. So
So would you say that the majority of the women in your database are like what percentage do you think want to kind of be at home doing this kind of traditional homemaker thing versus career women?
probably a good 30%, I would say, would not
Okay.
mind being a stay-at-home mom, does
Yeah.
not mind not working, does not
Hmm.
mind having a part-time job, does
Okay.
not mind just being a loving mother slash
Hmm.
wife.
Hmm.
So a
Hmm.
lot of that, they see their parents were like that. The dad brought the money in, the mom stayed at
Hmm.
home, raised the kids. And I think a lot of women want that, or at least the Asian women that I come in contact with. So um, they're not embarrassed to say, no, I want that. I want the guy to make more money. I want the
Hmm.
guy to support me and
Hmm.
financially
Hmm.
and emotionally. So yeah, it's a good percentage for sure.
Interesting. Um, it's interesting because I don't think that the majority of the women that are coming to me that are in my database want to be a stay-at-home mom or homemaker. It may be that they're interested in their spouses making a bigger income, so there isn't so much
Yeah,
stress on the both of
right.
them. But I think that is the difference between our populations for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, very good. What about like kind of the whole mystique about, dating an Asian woman, exotic and like, tantalizing and sexy and that kind of thing? Do you think that men are coming to you kind of with that agenda in mind?
I do. I think the Asian women who come to me who still have the long silky hair, the
Hmm.
slender body, the
Hmm.
Asian features, and they're
Hmm.
not dyeing their hair blonde. They're not trying to
Hmm.
be goth looking. They want the
Hmm.
traditional Asian women that they see in ads, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's why they're coming to me is
Hmm.
there is a certain stereotype that they're looking for.
Hmm.
As much as we don't want to admit that, it's true, right? The men
Hmm.
still have certain expectations.
Hmm.
So the women are they get more matches if they do look like that or act
Hmm.
like that, or they embrace their Asian traditions and
Hmm.
values, and guys appreciate that. So the women who might still live at home. A
Hmm.
lot of the younger Asian women still live with their parents. Even some of the men in my database still live with the parents after they
Okay.
graduate from college. It's
Hmm.
very common. It's very accepted. So
Hmm.
that's not a big deal. But yeah, the men who come to me are still looking for the traditional Asian woman. But I have Asian women who came from Asia, born in Asia,
Hmm.
and born here who are
Hmm.
Americanized, no accents, so
Hmm.
they also have to specify what are they okay with. Because if you just say Asian women, it's like, okay, I have 20 more follow-up questions like
Right.
Asia from what country,
Yeah.
at what age is it okay that she came over? What if has a strong accent? Are you open to Asian women overseas? Are you open to Asian women who still live at home with their parents? Like all those different things come into play. I remember one time I talked to a matchmaker and I go, well, what kind of Asian is she? What country? Like, what kind of Asian is she? And the matchmaker goes, she's Asian. I don't know what country she's from. I'm like, wait, what? Like, what country and like what dialect does she speak? You know, there's like 20, 30, 40, 50 dialects just in Chinese alone, you know? So those things matter to my clients. Yeah. So the more specific.
It's so interesting. So when a very traditional Asian woman comes in with the long hair and perhaps lives at home, are you like, all right, you know, this is what we've been looking for her, right? Since it's like the preferred Asian.
And the Asian men who come to me don't mind the Asian women still living at home, because sometimes the Asian men are still living at home versus a regular American guy right now. You know, it doesn't sound good if he says he lives at home, you know, like it's just different. So yeah, a lot of different factors.
That's intriguing and interesting to me, because you're right. If you hear now a guy is living at home, you're like, well, what's going on there? Why can't he like get out of the nest? And is there something wrong with him? Does he not have a job? And I mean, and then in Europe and obviously Asia, people live in the family home until they get married, period.
Right.
And then also it kind of, to me, also sort of symbolizes, you know, a little bit of innocence, whether that's true or not. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you're still like in the nest. Maybe it's, you know, perhaps maybe the guy isn't as much of a player because he can't bring women home to the homestead. It's like, yeah, meet my parents. But it kind of reminds me a little bit like high school. You know, when a guy used to come pick you up at the door, you had to meet the parents. And there's something wonderful, I think, about a family meeting your beau from the very beginning. It's like, how do you stand up to the parents? You know, you shake the father's hand. You know, I'm sure there's so much of that going on, and it makes it more serious too. You know, if you're really going on a date, you go and pick somebody up, right? So that is it. So, but for your purposes, they're probably not going to the home for the first date, or are they? When you make an introduction, or are they meeting at the restaurant?
They're meeting at the restaurant. Okay. Yeah. We make them meet in the middle. And
Okay. They don't have to go knock on the door.
No.
Hello, sir. It's nice to meet you. I'm here to pick up your daughter.
Do you set up the place and location and time for them like we do? Yeah. Like we concierge the date and pick out the restaurant.
Date. Oh, but wait, listen to this one, May. So a couple of years ago, I stopped allowing people to know even the first name of the person that they're meeting. And I'll tell you why.
They're Googling them?
Because they're Googling them. Oh, except that they can also Google them with even a first initial. People drive me crazy. They're insane. They're like, I'm gonna figure this person out. So it happened. So we give as little information as possible. I just usually talk about their, you know, how they think about the world, and, you know, their, like, you know, their core values and what industry they're in. But I have stopped telling them first name, where they went to college or grad school, you know, where they work. Well, I never really told people where they work, but people would figure it out by played basketball at Villanova. His name is John, and, you know, he's your age. People be like, I know who it is. And then sometimes they'd come back to me and be like, yeah, I'm just not attracted to that person. I figured out they were on Instagram. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I've done all this work. We have set up the date and everything. Now you're telling me I want you to meet them. Right. So I took it away, and I was like, listen, you hired me for a reason, right? You need to trust me. And this introduction is happening, and that's it. And so I say, please don't try to Google. And, you know, sometimes they do, I guess, probably, and they don't tell me. But it's okay. It's all right. So we did take that away from them. Has that ever happened to you?
Not very often, actually. I do give them their first name. If it's a unique first name, I try to misspell their first name so they can find them.
Okay.
But yeah, the schools, a lot of times people are so proud of where they went to school, and they want to tell their potential match all these great things about them. So they want to tell them, I work for Google, I went to school here. And so a lot of times they get, they like to kind of brag on their own.
Right.
So yeah, it hasn't happened a lot to me. So I'm not at, what you're doing yet. So
yeah, well, it started happening a lot, like during a short period of time. And then I'm like, I'm done. That's it. No more. The privilege has been taken away from you. You're being punished and everybody in the future, but it's not really. And people sometimes I feel like with these introductions, I don't know if you feel this way, May, it's almost like less is more. It's like they want to do the discovery on the date. Like they're intrigued about like sort of peeling back the onion. So I just give sort of just a brief overview and I tell them they're wonderful and I can't wait for them to meet them. And then they go on the date and we, like you said, concierge the whole thing. And we actually use my date coordinator's name as the name that they need to ask for at the hostess stand. They meet at the table. Sometimes they'll go on an activity date and we find out what they're going to wear in advance. Yeah. We've done that a bunch too. And then after the date, they have to fill out a date survey and then we set up a phone call. Is that what you do also?
I do both. Yes. Sometimes they just call me directly. Sometimes they text me right after the date.
Yep.
Sometimes I text them if they don't answer their phones. I email them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
perfect.
All that.
Yep.
I'm not as strict with the phone numbers though. Like when I set up the date a week in advance or so, I just exchange phone numbers and I tell them, hey, call each other the day before to confirm or to say hi, but keep the conversations 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. And do you find that sometimes they just say, nah, I'm not really interested?
Not often. Not
often. Okay.
My problem is more that the women expects the men to contact them to confirm. So the day of the date, they don't hear from the guys in the morning. So then the women's like, well, if he doesn't contact me soon, then I'm making other plans. And I'm like, wait, I set this up like 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance. Do not cancel because you just want to find reasons to say no. Like, I just feel like sometimes women just find reasons to cancel. I'm like, this is why you're single, because you're not giving people a chance. Like, so that frustrates me. But
yeah, exactly.
But that's where I'm the middleman. Yeah.
Yep. And with all the work that it takes that we put into these introductions, I just want to strip away any opportunity that anyone could have to not actually meet in person.
Right.
So that's why in my 16 years of doing this, I feel like I've got it down to like a fine-tooth comb kind of process. So it works for me. So I'll tell you, I'm really excited. I had like 10s across the board for a date survey that came back. They went out last night. And first thing in the morning, I got from both of them literally 10s. And then we talked to them on the phone, each of them, and they were both so excited. Like the one woman said that she just called her sister and said it is the best date that she's ever been on.
Awesome.
And he said he mirrored everything that she said. So this is so great. I was beyond thrilled. And we've introduced him to like five different women so far.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think she was his fifth date. And he gave each one of them a shot. Like really, he went on multiple dates with multiple women, but it just always came back to the same thing. He was like, Laurie, I'm just not feeling that gut feeling like she's the one. And I'm like, then let's stop now. We don't have to do people pleasing with dating.
Right.
And he said, I have like this tendency sometimes, to go out with somebody longer than I should and not cut it off soon enough. And I'm like, listen, don't worry about that. Like, you're going to know it. And then when he gave that feedback, I was like, yep, there you go. There it is.
Was he? What's his story? What's his background?
He's like 34 and she's 32, which I appreciated because sometimes I'm sure it's with you too. It's like, we'll hear a guy say, I want to date somebody like much younger, like 8 years younger, 10 years younger. Normally men in their 30s, in their early 30s, don't always say that, but in their later 30s, they will say they want to go 8 to 10 years younger. It's challenging sometimes, very challenging sometimes, but he's a great guy, works for the family business, handsome, tall, like kind of chiseled features. Like he's kind of like a JFK look, which I don't know if you've heard this from people before. It's kind of like, well, why would somebody like that hire you? It's like, why wouldn't they hire me? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's like a total, like the complete package.
Yeah.
And sometimes the complete package can be harder to match up than somebody who's not quite the complete package, whatever that means, right? The complete package, whatever. But yeah, so he's handsome, well-educated, successful, fit, very sociable, just a good guy, you know, it's just a nice guy. And, you know, he's of course, you know, looking for someone that he's very attracted to and somebody who, he said he wanted somebody who's fun. He wanted somebody who had like a lively personality and could kind of go with the flow and, you know, that didn't, you know, wasn't too structured. And so it took us a minute to like figure it out. And then we found her. And it was interesting because when she first came in, I was like, oh yeah, there she is. She's great. And we contacted her. She's like, I just started dating somebody. I'm like, well, wait a minute. You just filled out the application. What is going on here? But you know how people are. It's like they throw in an application, then all of a sudden they're on a second date with somebody and they're like, well, maybe, you know, I need to not pursue this right now.
Right.
So, so she came back to us. She's like, by the way, I'm back on the market. And I was like, well, then we need to make this match happen because he had just been out with someone else and it didn't work out. And then he was pretty open about kind of what he was looking for. Like I really like him because he's not that guy that's like, I want a unicorn. I want a 10 out of a 10. Like he's never said that before. Right. He would even be open to relook. Oh, and it was a Charlotte, Winston Salem, Charlotte. So it's like an hour and 15 minutes away. Yeah. Which goes to saying, like, don't just be open to dating in your backyard. Like sometimes travel the distance. She's open to relocation. So is he. So who knows if it works out? Yeah. Crossing my fingers. One of them will relocate. That's all. And yeah, his family's in Charlotte. So I'm excited about it. Like I just have a really good feeling around all of it. And, you know, I have another client who's like so happy right now. And every time I talk to her, she's like, Laurie, I never would have met him if it wasn't for you. And she hired me for my online dating coaching program, where I manage them completely online. And they have to be involved as well. It's like a real partnership with online dating. And she met a great guy. Again, she lives in Raleigh and he lives in Charlotte. So you do a lot of the long distance ones too. And it was a complete in her second week of the program. So I was like, yes. And every time I talk to her, she's like, I couldn't have done this without you. Couldn't have done this without you. And it's just like, it feels so good as a matchmaker. Yes. I mean, I know you and I both know that can be the most challenging job in the world, right?
It is definitely challenging, but it's also a fun job. I mean, matchmaking is not for everybody. I know it sounds like a sexy job and everyone that I talk to likes to talk to me about it. Or if you go to a networking function, people want to talk to you about it. But it is a lot of hard work and you really have to have thick skin and be a go-getter. You can't, I don't understand how someone can do this on the side and have another job. I'm like, no way. Like I would not be successful at this if I wasn't 100% in. I just feel like that makes a difference. I mean, the matchmakers that we talk to, I feel like the ones who are truly successful are the ones who this is their full-time job and they're 100% paycheck. They're not relying on something else to carry them. So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, matchmaking is tough, man. I mean, but I love it. I mean, you've been doing this 16 years, you said, right? I've been doing this since 2009, so 13 years. This is the longest job I've ever had, like, out of all my other careers and things like that. So very fortunate to be able to do this. And I don't know if I told you, but I'm also training Asian matchmakers so I want to, I don't know, start a Asian matchmaking institute, if you will. But
I love that.
The thing is, it's to really create Asian matchmakers to build my circle of Asian matchmakers. So we help each other out and make it easier to match our clients. So I'm in the midst of training one right now and she's great. I've already referred a couple clients to her that she's taken over and It's just a different way of doing more business, I guess. After
Yeah.
13 years, I'm kind of pivoting into something new, but it's just going to be better for my clients to have have more pockets of Asian matchmakers throughout the US. So I think that's going to help tremendously. So yeah, I'm looking forward to developing more Asian matchmakers that way.
I think that's brilliant. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's so incredible. And May, do you feel comfortable? Well, I want to talk about your husband and
Okay.
your love journey,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you got married kind of recently. Is that a second marriage or a first marriage? Tell us a little bit about your love story.
Okay. It's my first marriage. I'm a
Okay.
total late bloomer.
Okay.
Even with dating. Okay. Going back to Asian parents, right? Like
Yes.
they expect you to get good grades, go to a good college, and all of a sudden you have a job, and then my
Mhm.
parents are like, oh, where are my grandkids? But it's like, hello, mom and dad, you didn't allow me to wear makeup, you didn't allow
Right.
me to date. How am I supposed to magically behind your back pop up these grandkids for you? So that's kind of what happened to me, is like I didn't have any
Mhm.
dating experience, even through
Mhm.
college I didn't really date. I was, virgin until I was, I don't know, 18, 19. I mean, I don't know
Okay.
if that sounds old, but yeah, a lot of my friends were having sex when they were 16, right? So
Mm.
yeah, I was a total late bloomer, and I met my husband, speaking of long distance, we dated long
Mhm.
distance. I was in LA, he was in
Mhm.
Colorado for a year, and then we dated long distance when we're in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans, he was in LA.
Okay.
So, and he's 10 years younger than me.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah,
did not know that.
no one knows
That
that.
is
No one assumes
well,
that.
now everybody knows.
Right. That's the thing. It's like, okay, Asian women, we all look younger than we are. And, I met him when he was 26 and I was 36.
Okay.
So we both worked at Enterprise Rent a Car. I was his boss's boss. So I was way up in the company, and he was like a brand new management trainee. But we didn't start dating until we both quit the company and we
Okay.
reunited outside of Enterprise. So that's kind of how we met. And we dated for 10 years, Lori, 10
Wow.
years.
Wow.
Then we moved together from LA to Colorado, which is where his parents are from, where he grew up.
Right.
So then we moved here, and
Mhm.
then we got married in 2017. So we've been together for 15 years, but we've been married only 5. So I was a total late bloomer. And I believe that women can find love if they just don't put all these parameters, like they have to be this age, he has to make this amount of money. Like I
Mhm.
was always the breadwinner in our relationship. Like I
Yeah.
made
Who cares?
much more than he did, but now he's
Uh-huh.
making a lot more than I did, so
Great.
it just doesn't matter. Like I feel like all these
Mhm.
type A women out there are like, I'm looking for a guy that makes as much money as me and he has to be this, and this. It's like, who cares about any of that? Like,
Yeah.
and I never thought I would date a smoker or marry a smoker, but he's a
Okay.
smoker. I deal
Yeah.
with, I don't like it, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't break our relationship. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
I'm a
Yeah,
total
because that's like
lover.
everybody's deal breaker is the
Oh
smoking.
yeah, yeah,
Everybody's.
yeah. Yeah, I don't even have any smokers in my database, but
Yeah.
it's like it just happens. Like you just never know.
Yeah.
And when I was 36, I got together with him. I thought, I don't really care to have kids. And he's like, me
Mhm.
either. So we both
Okay.
decided that we didn't want kids.
Mhm.
Because if I wanted kids, I probably would have had them on my own, because
Mhm.
I always tell the women who come to me, it's like, if you're 33, you're
Yeah.
going to 34, approaching 35, like you
Mhm.
better stop being picky. Like you shouldn't even be picky on height, because if you want kids, you better just buckle down and find someone who has a good heart, who's
That's right.
kind, who's generous. Like
Mhm.
no one has ever said, oh, my husband is amazing, great father, great husband because he's tall. No one has ever said that. Like, I just want to strangle the women who say, I
Yes.
need a tall guy, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm 5'6". I dated a guy that was 5'6". Who cares? You know?
I am 100% on board with you.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we both have tall husbands, which is it's kind of
But
hilarious.
yeah, but I would have,
But
I would
that,
have,
like, I didn't
yeah,
care
it
when I
doesn't
was
matter
dating.
to me.
No,
Yeah.
when I was
I
dating
hate the
different
short guys.
people, I dated a guy my height. I thought it
Yeah,
was cool.
right.
Yeah, like why not? Who cares? I know people are women, because I say in my in the profile, people have to fill out, what is, your physical type. And like 9 out of 10 times women are like, I like them tall. And it's just like, really, who cares?
Yeah.
I'm about to talk to a guy who's 5'8" and he's adorable. Hoping that he hires me. And I'm thinking, I mean, I could totally set him up. I'm going to find open women. They're okay with 5'8". I mean, my own dad is, I mean, gosh, he's a short man. Like, I want to say he's like 5'6" or something.
Yeah.
Best father in the world.
Yeah.
Best. So I totally agree with you. That's funny. So you got married later. Now, did you do a lot of dating in between? Like, was he kind of your first real boyfriend, or did you have a couple boyfriends
No,
before?
I had actually a few boyfriends. I mean,
Okay.
I dated an Indian guy for 3.5 years, and I
Okay.
don't even find Indian men attractive. Like, that's just me. I know a
Mhm.
lot of women do find Indian men attractive, but I
Mhm.
don't. But because I knew him and
Mhm.
I liked his personality and he was funny,
Mhm.
I just fell in love that way, and dated a Caucasian guy.
Mhm.
Dated another Asian guy, so I was pretty open. But yeah, the men weren't particularly tall. They were
Yeah.
just good
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
like educated, fun,
Right.
you
And
know.
then you married a Caucasian man.
Yes,
And
yes.
how did your parents react to that? Were they okay with it, or were they kind of disappointed that you didn't marry an Asian man, or were they just happy that you settled down finally, kind of feeling?
Well, my parents don't really speak English,
Mhm.
so they really had no say. Just kidding. No, no, they don't really, they speak okay English, like
Mhm.
conversational English, like hello,
Mhm.
eat this, how are you? Like
Right.
very basic. So they liked Phil, my
Mhm.
husband. So
Mhm.
they treat him really nice. And it's kind
Mhm.
of weird because my husband can't really communicate with them. I mean, my dad
Right.
has, but
Yeah.
my mom, he can't really communicate with my mom. But when you're in the same room with somebody, you can still express that kind of love and affection. Like you your arm around her, and like he,
Mm.
just is friendly to her and smiles, and that's really all that matters. But
Totally.
yeah.
They feel the love no matter what.
Yeah,
Exactly. Okay.
yeah.
That's
But
great. I love your story.
one thing I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
you know how you said about the men and women, you don't put
Mhm.
their names on their profiles and things like that.
Mhm.
And I know some matchmakers don't put the age of the women on the profile if the men, just look at our photo and say yes
Mhm.
or no. Do you always put the height of the men on your profiles, or you don't
I do.
include that?
Yeah, I
Okay.
include height and age.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, for
Me
sure.
too. Me too.
Uh-huh.
But I
And
was thinking,
sometimes I don't even send the profile. Sometimes I just
okay,
talk about it,
yeah,
because sometimes people pick apart the profile too, or they get
right,
so excited about meeting somebody that they like hype it up too much, and then that's a disaster.
right.
They like fall in love. It's like, you haven't met them yet. Calm down. Yes. Yeah. That's always
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
tough job, man. Yeah, we
Well,
do.
it's not, I know, and I talked about this on another one of my podcasts, but this job is not just about the matchmaking, it's about everything else too,
Yeah,
from coaching to all the business side of it, social media, and all that content that needs to happen, sales.
yeah,
You need to be a good writer, you need to be a generalist with everything, you need to be creative, manage the website, manage all the behind the scenes stuff. And then if you've got staff, managing them, delegation, like everything. There's so much to being a matchmaker. It's not just about setting people up.
right.
Otherwise everybody would give it a shot. But and getting on TV and podcasts and everything that we do to keep spreading the word, and also just continually trying to like think out of the box.
Right, right,
So and that's honestly, I mean, skill set that you could really do with most jobs. But then you also need to be intuitive and
right.
thoughtful and a good communicator and know how to listen.
What are your strengths? You asked me what my strengths are. What are your strengths?
Everything I just said. Although, I mean, it's true.
Right.
Although, my social media, I need to amp that up more. Like I want to get like super creative. So I'm working on it,
Yeah.
I'm working on it. But like there's a part of me that doesn't really want to share like my whole life with the world. Like I want to, like I need to keep some of it to myself. Like I don't want to talk about my kids
Yeah.
on social media. I'll like somebody graduates from college or grad school, you're going to see that photo, but I want to keep a private life. But I also want to share like who I am. So it's kind of like a fine line. So that's one area I need to improve upon. But I mean, everything else I think I'm really good at, I mean, there's a reason I'm doing this and there's a reason I'm successful. And then, when it doesn't work out for one reason or another with a client, I'll, either part ways as friends, shake on it and let's exchange some money back and just walk away and, or, try to work through the conflict and figure out really what is it about, the client, like, why aren't they happy? So there's kind of some of that peeling back layers. And most of the time, honestly, it's just that they're sitting in pain, and fear, of, being alone. And so, I do have to use my master's in social work to try to get behind, like peel back the layers to figure out like where it really is that pain. Cause it's not my fault. A lot of times it's like I'm sending them out with exactly who they're looking for, but maybe I'm not getting good feedback,
Right.
from the women. So it's like, and then it's awkward because you have to give some feedback, maybe not all of it, because you don't want it to be more painful. The hardest people for me to work with, tell me if this is the same with you, are the people that have very grandiose ideas of who they want, but they're not bringing the same thing to the table. Like the guy that's looking for the woman who's 12 years younger, 12 to 15 years younger, that is fit and fun and fabulous. And he is kind of just an average normal guy, fine, right? But the women aren't finding, they're thinking that the guy is too old and is kind of has an old vibe to them. Maybe they don't dress nice enough, even though I'll like send them off to the, meet with the stylist, and they're just not bringing it to the table. And then, but the guy, and, you know, I've worked with these men before where the men, it's like they can't really take the coaching. They'll like blame it on either on me, I'll get that sometimes, or the woman, but they'll never look at themselves in the mirror,
Right.
And that can be a challenging person to coach.
Yeah.
Have you found that?
Yes, I've had guys that I worked with one recently who didn't want any of the feedback. Like he thought there was nothing wrong with him. And sometimes when the men hire us, they think, well, just put the right person in front of me and I'll make it work. And I'll be at my best behavior and charm them. But it's not that way. Like if you're
That's
not
right.
used to being a good dater, you're not going to be a good dater when it matters. So it's like, I almost encourage them to practice dating all the time and practice conversation with everyone they meet. So when that perfect woman pops up in front of them, they will just act normal and not, it's just so hard to convince them sometimes. And, this gentleman is 60 and he wants kids and I'm setting him up with 42 and younger and he's not putting in the effort. And I'm like, well, you need to put in the effort, even if you don't like her. So I know you're capable of
That's right.
a good dater, and I will set you up with better people if I know you're a good person, and if you're just a jerk, then I don't even want to work with you. Like, I don't,
Yes.
I
Oh my
know.
God, it's so true. I've had that scenario many times. It's like the guy, I'll hear from the woman. Yeah, I could tell he wasn't interested. And, as soon as he saw me, he looked crestfallen. And then I had to sit through the date and I felt like I was making all the conversation. And then I'll say to him, like, what happened? He's like, oh, I just wasn't attracted to her. It's like, I don't care if you're attracted to her or not. You're representing my company. Because it looks bad on me, number one, if you're not kind to the women I introduce you to. And then number two, exactly, let me see what you can bring to the table.
Right.
Exactly. Because believe me, and May, I know you agree with me. It's like when we start to dislike a client, we don't want to work with them anymore. And then we feel bad for the women that we're introducing to them. And then we have to part ways. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God. That's not the kind of company I run.
Right.
It's like when my ethics, and when I feel like my ethical standpoint is being compromised, I cannot live with myself. That's the way it is. Like, I won't take on a client if I don't think I can do a good job for him
Right.
or
Same.
her. She hires me for online dating. And also, like, you cannot use me as that kind of a service. You know, that's what it started to feel like. It felt inside. So I just was like, you're done. Boom, you're out. So,
But on the other side of that is when you work with a client and he's such a good guy, like always considerate, emails you back,
Yeah.
speak to you respectfully, politely, and he's, you know, positive.
Yep.
Even though his membership ran out, I'm still setting him up because I'm like, he's such a good guy. I'm going to find him somebody. I don't care if he's paying me, you know, like,
oh yeah, I'll
so
do that.
There's that side, right? Of great
100%.
guys. So
yeah, you know what happens with those guys usually, if I go through, you know, my 6-month program with them, and we're not successful in terms of long-term relationship, I'll set them up a couple more times for free. And then I'll say to them, why don't you rehire me? And I'll get renewals, you know, because they want to keep meeting, and they'll come back to me and they'll say, Laurie, you know, like, I'm just not meeting the quality of women that you were introducing me to. So like, I'm going to hire you again. Yeah. So that's been, you know, I just love the majority of the people that hire me, like 98%. And then the 2% I just get rid of.
But that's the beauty of us having our own companies, is we get to pick and choose who we want to work with, because I didn't come into business for myself to stress out. Like, I don't stress. So it's bad for our health. So we don't need stress.
100%. It is bad for our health. We are not going to be stressed out matchmakers. That's for sure.
Right.
Well, good. Well, speaking of that, let's call it a day with this conversation. We can go relax. Tell me, how can people find you? What are your socials? And do you have a favorite charity?
I can be found at my website. Is 2asianmatchmakers with an S.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. Unfortunately, I'm on all these social medias now. My favorite charity, gosh, what is my favorite charity? I don't really have a specific
charity. Like a cause that you would.
I love pets. I love animals. I donate to them. I don't donate time because I don't have a lot of time, but I certainly donate money and things like that. I'm a huge dog lover. I have 2 dogs and 3 cats. And so, yeah.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Well, it was lovely, and I cannot wait to see you again in person very soon.
Yes. Thanks, Laurie.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.